China is finally accepting it now. We just had a highly sensitive phone call here between Donald Trump and the Chinese president, and now it looks like a positive trade deal might be reached in the long term. Let's take a look at what was revealed here. Bitcoin didn't react that strongly at first, but this could actually be very, very good for the markets in the long run. We now actually have gold mines that are starting to sell gold and use the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. There was a highly sensitive meeting between the USA and the Bitcoin country El Salvador that just took place. And we have Cathie Wood from ARK Invest, who is actually explaining why a supply shock is coming our way. She explains her 100 trillion Bitcoin thesis, why 100 trillion will have to or will end up fleeing into Bitcoin. But we also have new companies, new purchases, and a whole lot happening behind the scenes. A lot is happening again today. Only the Bitcoin price isn't really moving much yet. That's why you need to smash the like button below if you want the Bitcoin price to finally break out. We really need enough likes here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button right now. But now, let's take a look at what's currently happening with Bitcoin. And there was a post from the Bitcoin therapist who said, "Do you remember the crash from $69,000 down to $15,000? What a bloodbath. If you survive that, it's definitely going to be very, very easy for you to ride Bitcoin all the way up to $1 million from here." I mean, there were people who experienced even crazier price drops, like from 20,000 down to 3,000. If you've been through all of that and made it through, then you can easily just HODL your Bitcoin all the way up to $1 million from here. That's just the important lesson I want to share with all the newcomers right at the start, because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, okay, they've just experienced their first setbacks, where their Bitcoin dropped from just over 100,000 down to 75,000 US dollars. But honestly, that's nothing. There have been way crazier things than that. And once you've been through something like that, you don't get shaken up anymore by any FED news or anything like that. Now we have new companies buying Bitcoin again. For example, Cav1 Capital, actually a real estate company, now wants to buy $100 million worth of Bitcoin. That means more and more people are questioning their business models and moving away from traditional investments like real estate and stocks. Now we have Romania's largest postal service, which is starting to sell Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies at over 5,000 locations. We'll also be talking in a moment about the highly sensitive conversation between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. But what I also actually want to mention, and this also supports my thesis that, in the long run, Bitcoin has to prevail over gold. Here, a public gold company, Bluebird, announces that it will sell gold and put the proceeds into Bitcoin for its corporate finances. Goldbacks are bowing down. It's happening. We're now seeing a major shift from gold to Bitcoin. And I mean, just think about it. How crazy is it when even gold miners no longer believe in their own product? It's kind of like if central banks suddenly stopped believing in their own money and started buying Bitcoin. The gold miners don't believe in their own product anymore. They sell gold and use the money to buy Bitcoin. The steel industry, the silver industry, all the commodity industries are starting to lose faith in their own resources, selling everything to buy Bitcoin instead. I mean, we've seen this kind of thing plenty of times before. For example, with shitcoin issuers. Out in public, they're always hyping up their own coin. Hey, my shitcoin is so cool. My project is awesome. But secretly, behind the scenes, they know that Bitcoin is better and they actually hold Bitcoin themselves. And something similar is now happening in other industries too, like in real estate. For example, Cardone Management, instead of focusing solely on real estate like they have for years, is still planning real estate projects. But now they're putting their surplus into Bitcoin. And the same goes for gold companies, silver companies, and so on. All the others will follow suit as well. And with the Bitcoin treasury companies, it's already the case that they don't reinvest their profits back into their own company, their own productivity, or their own business case or product. But instead, in some cases, they actually prefer to invest in Bitcoin. We can see that here as well. These 61 companies now own about 3.2% of all shares. Well, no, 3.2% of all Bitcoin, which is about 680,000 Bitcoin. All of these were purchases at over 90,000 per share. No, that's a mistranslation. It should be per Bitcoin here, bullish. So here you can see various companies. For example, you can see Strategy 21 Capital, Galaxy, Digital Block, Metaplanet, and many others. And it's also remarkable that the companies that bought so much Bitcoin during the high phase, so now, at over 90,000. So, Michael Saylor has been buying Bitcoin for a very long time, but he only made the really big purchases recently, when the Bitcoin price had already risen significantly. But I mean, a lot of people are familiar with this. When you first get into Bitcoin, you're hesitant at the beginning. You don't throw in a lot of money right away. And actually, when you're basically the so-called dumb money and the Bitcoin price is still lower, but you haven't done much research yet, you end up getting disproportionately more gains. But making those big allocations, most people only dare to do that later, once they've done more research and feel even more confident in the Bitcoin thesis. And yeah, that's just how the Bitcoin journey goes. The longer you're in it, the more aggressively you invest. But of course, the higher the Bitcoin price is, which pushes your average purchase price up. Now, let's take a look at the highly charged conversation between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. So, China and the USA, who have just met here. And this is a conversation that shouldn't be underestimated. Donald Trump also posted about it here, but we haven't really seen any positive reactions from the market, I would say. Often, when we've had something like this, we've seen positive reactions when such news came out. But it seems like the market is becoming more and more detached from all the trade conflict stuff and so on. But let's go through what Donald Trump wrote here anyway, because it's really very, very relevant in the long term for stocks, financial markets, and of course Bitcoin. He says here, I just had a very positive phone call with Chinese President Xi Jinping, during which we discussed some of the details of our recently completed and agreed upon trade deal. The call lasted about an hour and a half and ended very positively for both countries. So that's important to take note of. There should no longer be any questions regarding the complexity of rare earths here. That was the big issue, that there hadn't really been an agreement on rare earths. And then there was just beef, arguments, back and forth, and so on. Our respective teams will meet soon at a location yet to be determined. We will be represented by Finance Minister Scott Basson, Trade Minister Howard Lutnick, and the United States Trade Representative, Ambassador Jameson Creer. During the conversation, she kindly invited the First Lady and me to visit China. So there will probably definitely be a visit to China. The conversation was almost entirely about trade. So it wasn't about the whole Ukraine-Russia issue or anything like that. It was only about trade conflicts. And I think that's definitely something very, very positive to take away from this, especially if there ends up being an official deal. So this is basically the unofficial deal for now, because as you know, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel here, you always find out about things before they're officially announced. So make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. I mean, I think, if Donald Trump isn't talking nonsense here and if he's actually not lying or anything, and we've often had situations where, yeah, some strange things were shared, but if he's really being honest here, then it really looks like we pretty much already have a deal that's almost locked in. But we've also had it happen a lot in the past that Donald Trump always chicken out, like he always pulled the Taco Bell move. So, Trump always chickens out. That's what TACO stands for. That means he gave us really, really positive news, saying, hey guys, everything's cool, the trade deals are happening. Only to maybe take short positions and then 3 hours later post, hi, Xi Jinping isn't that great after all. He does something weird and now you have to call off the trade deals again or something like that. So it could be that the taco deal is coming back now, that the taco trade is coming back. I don't want to give the all clear just yet, but yeah, I think the market is starting to get it too. And the market is also tired of it and isn't letting itself be influenced by it as much anymore. The Bitcoin therapist described it really, really well too. He says here, let me put it this way. Donald Trump's companies raised billions a few days ago to buy Bitcoin. Yesterday, they filed an application for a Bitcoin ETF. And today, he's calling for an increase in the debt ceiling. This man is truly a genius. So you can also see that the strategy, or the plan now, is basically to pump the markets up, rather than creating a lot more stress, especially after they've already lined their pockets. They've set the Bitcoin ETFs in motion. They've filled their pockets with Bitcoin and who knows what else. And now they want to raise the debt ceiling. Now they want to close the deal. Now they want to print money. Now they want to stimulate. Now they want to pump up the markets. And here we also had a very, very interesting meeting. Here we see Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador. Here we see Bo Hines, the executive director for Donald Trump, who is also largely responsible for the Bitcoin and crypto strategies in the US. Here you can see them again. Here they are meeting, and they discussed collaboration between the United States and El Salvador on Bitcoin and digital assets. So this was clearly about a Bitcoin strategy. And it's of course very, very interesting to see how they are coming together more and more here. So Building 1 has now met with Pakistan, is now meeting with El Salvador, and so on. And you can really see that. They obviously know that there's a space race going on here. They also know, of course, that you have to keep an eye out. Okay, how are other countries doing this? There's already an exchange happening and so on. The countries can learn from each other. And it's just crazy that there's now an alliance between all these Bitcoin countries, because they actually fit together really, really well in general. Countries that promote and represent Bitcoin here often share similar values, while countries that despise or demonize Bitcoin, like the EU, for example, have different ones. Of course, they have a different mindset, and they represent different values in some ways. And I think it could be really, really exciting if maybe two opposing poles could form worldwide. Okay, on one side we have the Bitcoin countries, and on the other side, the countries that aren't supporting Bitcoin, that are more heading towards CBDCs and things like that. So I find that really interesting. And now let's bring in Cathie Wood with her bullish statement about Bitcoin.
The $100 billion that I mentioned, institutions have to either take up those newly minted Bitcoin, and that's going to happen over years and years, or they'll have to pay up to get holders to sell it. So again, scarcity value will increase because of the supply-demand imbalance, with institutional investors really having very little involvement yet. And so we think this is just the beginning.
We have 100 trillion in capital inflows coming in over the next few years that will flow into Bitcoin, simply because we have much more demand and supply. That means the supply fluctuates. Yeah, the demand rises, and at some point, there will be difficulties with Bitcoin. So theoretically, you can still get Bitcoin, but the price will just have to keep going up. You could get it from the miners, but some of them aren't selling anymore either. Then you have to buy it from other people, and the Bitcoin price keeps going up. And this is basically the bullish thesis, where she has actually raised her price target again to 2.4 million US dollars, as she becomes more and more certain that not her bear or base case will happen, but maybe even the bull case that ARK Invest has projected. I find it super exciting that more and more asset managers are catching on to this idea. Hey, it's so crazy how Bitcoin is going to prevail here. And everyone knows it. All the big players know that Bitcoin is going to make it, but the little guys. Donor.left just doesn't get it. He'd rather spend all day eating Donor and sleep through the whole thing. No hate against Donor. But yeah, if you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link to 2021 Bitcoin. Check it out. You can easily buy Bitcoin there now. You just have to download an app, enter the code Bitcoin Hotel, and you're good to go. Yeah, you can save up to 20% on fees when buying Bitcoin with that code. So check it out. See you around. Catch you later, guys. Peace out.